Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. I am joined with a very amazing guest, Mr. Cory Mcgowan. Cory is the founder and CEO of Adventure Partner, which is a transformational coaching practice based on the belief that people need more adventure in their lives to create the bold future they want for themselves. He's also a leadership coach for Pilea, integrative coaching for business and leaders. Working with Cory will have an impact on creating a world of businesses that is more of a fit for us and for the world we want to live in, as well as uncovering your inner spark, resilience, and being a better communicator. If you're interested in starting your adventurous partnership today, visit adventurepartner.net to book your discovery call or drop a DM to Cory to learn more. Hello, Cory. How are you today?
Hey, good. Thanks for that intro, AJ. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So, for the introduction, there must have been a lot of things that I said that might not be familiar with my audience. So, can I
Hmm.
can you please explain to my audience what Adventure Partner is in more detail and what inspired you to create this and what makes it so special?
Sure. Adventure Partner is an executive coaching practice. I am the founder and also the head coach, the only coach in the practice. The business is supported by my wonderful wife, who takes care of all the back office stuff. Um, and I actually didn't ever set out to be an entrepreneur or to kind of start my own practice. Um, but it was kind of out of circumstance that it happened. So, like a lot of people in the times of COVID, I had things kind of fall apart on me in my own way. Um, and I had been living out here in the mountains of Japan for um, about a year at that point, and was really not willing to move back to Tokyo because I'm not a city person, and it just didn't feel like a fit for me. So it was also the time that I had hired my own coach for the first time. And in talking to her, kind of decided, well, if I could really live any way that I wanted to and work any way that I wanted to, then I would get to do coaching, supporting leaders and executives, but I'd get to do it incorporating the stuff that I love, which is outdoor and adventure work. So on the day to day, my work looks like a lot of executive coaches around the world. I talk to leaders one on one on the phone generally and do sessions with them one on one. But the other part of my work that's kind of unique that I really enjoy is I bring them out here to this place called Minakami, which is about 1 hour outside of Tokyo by bullet train. And with individual clients, I have them come on what I call the wilderness visioning retreat to help them kind of decide what their future outcome is of the coaching partnership and what they want to create. And then I also do some work with teams and groups in the same way. Like I'll have companies come out here for company offsites or company retreats where we combine this type of transformative coaching work along with outdoor activities and adventure activities. So that's kind of the brunt of the coaching work. And then in addition to that, I have a lot of initiatives that I'm involved in that support the local community here in Minakami as well.
Awesome. And I'm sure my audience can see that beautiful background that you have behind you. And you mentioned your Corey is right now in Minakami, and part of his surroundings is a very beautiful nature. So, for my audience who are unfamiliar with Minakami as a place, how would you
Yeah.
describe your life in Minakami and how is it special for you?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, Minakami is it's kind of a combination of things. So it is a tourist destination in some ways. There are 7 different ski resorts here. There are several hot springs here. Um, so there's a history of tourism here, but it's also a quite kind of simple blue collar town as well. So the kind of the main industries outside of tourism are agriculture. Um, so it's kind of a like a simple town and a little bit of a touristic town, but there's actually a lot of people even in Japan that don't know Minakami that well. It's not as well known as some of the mountain destinations like Niseko or Karizawa. Um, it has a population of 18,000 people, and I think one of the things that makes Minakami unique in rural Japan is its openness. So a lot of rural communities in Japan are known for being quite closed, even to Japanese people that aren't from that area. And Minakami is the opposite of that. So it was really easy to make a transition here from Tokyo with our family. Um, and day-to-day life here is, uh, geez, it's so many different things. Like one of the things that I've loved about being here since I was in Tokyo for about 10 years before we moved out here. And it's a lot of just getting to move in the outdoors. So part of it is in the green season and in spring and summer, I spend a lot of time out in on this land here, like cutting the weeds and gardening and um, we heat our house with wood stove, so I do a lot of wood processing for that. And it's all stuff that is hard work, but I love to do because it means I get to be outside and I can really see like the results of the work clearly. And then it's also just spending time on adventures. So you can't really see it very well from here, but right below here is a river, and that's the Tonegawa River. It's the second longest river in Japan. So it goes from here across Japan over to the Pacific Ocean. And then there's a range of mountains that's about 20 minutes from here called the Tanigawa Range. The biggest mountain there is almost 2,000 meters. And so there's kind of no end to the fun outdoor stuff that you can get up to out here that's like mountain based and river based as well. And like I mentioned before, we have several ski resorts here and we have some of the best powder in the world. So for people that like snowboarding and skiing, it's a real great place to come to.
Absolutely. It sounds like an amazing place, and I'm sure that my audience watching this are definitely interested in going to where you are and hopefully meeting you.
Yeah, I'd love
So
that as well.
yeah, going back to what we talked a little bit about earlier about adventure
Yeah,
partner, what makes it unique. You
yeah.
mentioned a little bit about your experience, but I want to get into a little bit
Mhm.
more detail. Was there any
Yeah.
particular experience that you had in Adventure Partner which had a significant impact on your growth and in the journey?
Let's see. Yeah, I think it's kind of in the forming of Adventure Partner. I alluded to it a little bit, but let me just go back to that. So when I first moved here, I was still working at a company in Tokyo, a place called the Tokyo American Club. And for the first year, I commuted back and forth to Tokyo, and then I got offered a job running one of the big outdoor and adventure companies here, basically the biggest one in Minakami that serves the foreign market. And I became the COO of that company and was really excited because it was my first time at a C-level role. It's a pretty complex organization and it was, doing stuff that I love and I'm interested in. And within a year of taking that role, basically everything fell apart. So part of it was COVID related. Part of it was that there was kind of a mismatch in the expectations from the CEO and in terms of the change he wanted and also what I could provide. So I ended up leaving that, and it really scared me because, first of all, we were in COVID and nobody knew what the hell was happening. But also because I had part of the agreement to move out here with my wife and boys is that my wife left her job to basically run our house. And so I was providing for a family of 4, and all of a sudden that was gone. So people talk about having a dark night of the soul, and that's probably the closest that I've been. Just a lot of fear, a lot of loss of confidence, um, and a lot of growth, right? Like I said, I kind of did the counterintuitive thing, which is, I wasn't making any money at the time, but decided to invest some money in hiring a coach, um, because I believe in the effectiveness enough to have that be a way forward. And it turned out to be in a really big way. So that was a really formative experience. Um, and then since I've been in the work, probably what has been the most impactful is getting to have people come out here on retreat and work with me in person. When there's no real way to train to do that type of stuff, right? And so um, when people come out, the first couple of times, there can be a lot of like, shit, am I ready for this? Are they going to get value out of it? And every time that I've done it, I've just been really impressed in the way that clients show up ready for the work, and also the way that nature in the outdoors plays such an important role, right? As someone, when I first started doing this, I would think that, oh man, I have to have stuff planned for every minute that they're here, or it won't go well. Um, and it turns out if you let nature and if you let outdoors really play her part in the work, then you can kind of step back more, because the client, particularly clients, coming from the city and that are not used to this type of environment, will really be impacted by the environment, and you can kind of step back and let a lot of that happen in the work. So that's been a real interesting learning experience for me. I've gotten to do that overseas now as well. I have, you mentioned Pilea at the beginning. That's one of my key communities and partners. And so I was there last year in California doing a retreat for a bunch of venture capitalists. And it's really powerful work. And I think, especially post COVID, we're really appreciative when we get to be in person, and then when we get to combine that with dramatic outdoor settings, it's really interesting work.
Yeah, I totally agree. Your whole experience and what you went through, and for you to come out of that situation that you managed to, find yourself and discover who you really are. Did you think that that experience in forming Adventure Partner, was there anything that you learned about yourself that you didn't know before?
Yeah, it's a combination of that and being out in Minakami for this time, is that um, um, so I made the move to Tokyo, and within a year of being there, I met my wife, and she got pregnant, and we were getting married, and I was in a new job and working more kind of in corporate space than I had before. So it was like all this shit together at the same time that was really intense. Um, and moving out here made me realize just like how much armor I had created for myself to deal with the intensity of that situation. And so being out here in the mountains, living a very different lifestyle, getting to slow things down, getting a lot of choice in how I run my business and how I work from day to day, has allowed me to like peel a lot of that armoring back. And in some ways reminded me of like I spent almost all of my 20s kind of going on adventures and traveling internationally and stuff like that, with a very very lucky and fun life. And it's kind of brought me back to that time of like, oh yeah, I remember what this feels like. I remember like more who I am in my heart. And when I get to live in that way, then I get to show up in that way for my clients. And that's a lot of, I think, what effective coaching work is helping people to be like truer to themselves, right? So supporting leaders and developing the leadership that really comes from them, as opposed to, you know, what comes from a book, or 5 ways to be a great leader. Not that there's anything wrong with that stuff, but ultimately I think the path we should all be on, and that is most effective for leaders, is to bring out who they really are and what their style is and how they do it. So getting to have that experience myself, I think, really allows me to show up in a way that's true for the people that I work with.
Absolutely. I think the fact that like you mentioned in your 20s, you did a lot of traveling, and when you are a coach like you, it's important that you can show your clients that they can relate to something that, they find it's easy to relate to. And I think traveling and going on adventures for a lot of people is the happiness. It's the thing they strive for. And I know that, we touched a bit about your experience in Minakami as well. I want to go back a little bit further and know a little bit about your journey and how you ended up in Japan and what it was like going through different places and what made you ultimately, touch base in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I just when I was 13, I traveled outside of America for the first time with my family, and we went to Spain and Portugal. But we also took we took like a day trip to Morocco, and we went to the bazaar there. And I think there was something about that moment that like opened up the world outside of America for me. And I was just like, okay, I gotta see more of that. So in university, I studied French and Spanish, so that allowed me to do study abroad. And then after university, I just kept doing as much as I can. Um, and a friend of mine had been living in Tokyo for a couple of years. He came back and was like, "Yeah, it's really interesting. You should check it out." So we came back together. I went right into a Japanese language school because I was really interested in learning a completely different type of language than French and Spanish. And ran out of money immediately. Found a job as an English teacher. Really enjoyed that. I come from a background of educators. Both my parents were educators. Um, and things progressed from there. I tried to make a lot of Japanese friends because I wanted to really learn the language and get into the culture. Um, and so that was down in Aichiken, which is near Nagoya. It's either the second or third biggest city in Japan. And then from there, I moved to Chiba, and then from Chiba to Tokyo. Um, so I didn't actually meet my wife until I had been here 6 or 7 years. But I was already quite, mm, yeah, I was quite pulled into the culture. I think kind of the main reason because I had in Japan, I had a job, I had a place to live, I had kind of like the day-to-day stability, but it also always felt very foreign, right? So it was like the best of both worlds, like the stability of a normal life and income and all that, but also feeling like, wow, this is so different than what I'm used to. So I think that was kind of the draw for quite a while. It was all so interesting and different. And then just the things that I think most people know about Japan, like the convenience, the cleanliness, the great food, really kind people. So there's just a lot of combinations that make it a great place to live.
That's awesome. I think, Japan, like you said, is has a great combination of everything that you mentioned. And I'm pretty sure, like we mentioned at the start, it's also been really beneficial for adventure partner, your business, for your family, and everything like that. So my next question to you is, we mentioned a little bit about the effectiveness of having a coach, and you are
Yeah.
a coach yourself. And when you first had a coach, I think that was in 2020, if I was correct, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was around then. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one of the first marks in your transformational journey and what helped you develop your resilience, as you'd say. How did the experience of having that first coach help you and shape you to the person that you are today? And what did you learn from that experience of having a coach that you still carry on to today?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Um, Coaching is interesting, right? There's so many people that call themselves coaches now. It's kind of a buzzword. And at its core, like the kind of the truest approach of coaching is that we get to partner with people to help people understand themselves more by looking at like different patterns in their lives, right? These are patterns that we develop um, as humans because we're ingenious, right? We develop patterns from a very young age to keep ourselves safe, to keep ourselves loved, right? Those two things are what has us form our psychological patterns. But of course, as we get older, they can also turn into things that get in the way. So in my work with my coach, like I was mentioning, the only thing I had in my head was like, well, if I'm going to have a career, like I have to work for somebody and I probably have to work in a city, or in some kind of a company um, that I don't necessarily want to be, but I have to be because that's work, right? So one of the primary things that my coach helped me with is to see like, well, what if there's possibility outside of that? And what if you could really choose how you do it, what type, how you want to work, what type of clients you want to work with. Um, and so like inviting me to step outside what I would consider normal or what we like call predictable, right? What are the things outside of what's comfortable to me that I'm willing to try? And doing stuff like that is a lot harder when you don't have someone that's partnering with you that's kind of saying um, like coaches generally, our job is not to tell people what to do, but it's generally to kind of helps create possibility and see outside of that zone of like patterns and where we're comfortable. So yeah, that's the primary thing that my coach helped me to do and that I do with leaders. And then also to, there's some aspect of accountability, like saying like, okay, you've declared to your coach, these are the results that you want to create and how are they going? And if they're not going in the direction that you want them to, why not? Like what's getting in the way? Um, so a lot of kind of reflection of that type of thing. And then, as I said, like accountability to follow through on the things that you say you want to do. So those are the primary ways that my coach helped me. And then sometimes it's just like, and this happens a lot with me with clients now as well, as just having someone to talk to who is kind of not inside your context of your life, right? So, for example, your family is within your context of your life, and the people that you work with are generally within the context of your life. And so there's some agenda that they have. I don't mean that in a negative way, but there's some outcome that they're wanting from you or wanting for you or whatever. And the advantage of working with someone who's a coach is they're outside of that context. So they can see things differently than you can, or that the other people in your life can. And they can offer helpful questions and also helpful reflections to you.
Awesome. I think we all start somewhere, and for that person to be your coach, she was also coached by another coach. And
Mhm.
and I'm sure that, as a coach yourself, a lot of my audience here wants to be a coach or have
Mhm.
aspirations to want to be coaches or be coached by you. But focusing on my audience that want to be a coach like you,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
how can someone watching this right now who wants to be a leadership and executive coach gain the skills that you mentioned and the required skills to be a great coach?
Yeah. So, the easy answer is that there are plenty of programs out there that if you have the money to pay for them, you can sign up and get certified, right? Um, so the great news is there are a lot of paths towards that. The more complicated answer is that uh, coaches are more effective the more that they understand themselves, and that they can be really firm in who they are. And the reality is that can take time, right? It can take time, and or it can take really hard experiences, right? So I don't buy the idea that like young people can't be coaches. Um, I was just listening to a podcast this morning that really got me fired up because it was these two older foreigners in Japan who were talking about like you shouldn't be a coach unless you've really been through like a company and had this experience and blah blah blah. Um, and of course, there's value to that, but coaches aren't supposed to be experts in your business, right? They're supposed to be people who are doing their own work, who have done the work to understand themselves, so that they can hold um, a firm space for the people that they're dealing with. So the what I encourage people who have an interest in coaching is um, first get some life experience, right? Whatever that means for you. Um, and second, work with a coach. See what it's really like. And this is tricky as well because coaching is not free, right? And I actually discourage people from getting coaching that is free because generally, um, paying for something is there's an energetic commitment to that that's different than when something is free. So when you pay for it, you show up differently, and the coach shows up differently as well. Um, so again, like getting your own experience, having life break your heart in different ways, going through grief and difficulty, are all like really important things to have, because those are the types of things that you're going to deal with when you work with people in a coaching partnership. And then, like I said, if you can have the experience of working with a coach and really experiencing the change of what that's like, that will then give you a further idea of like, yeah, is this really something that I want to be doing? Because I'll tell you a quick story about this. When I became a coach, I was actually working in organizational development. And all of my professional background has been in Japan, and pretty much every job I've done was a job that I wasn't really qualified for. I mean, I was qualified for in terms of like my intellect and my willingness to do the job and some experience. I've had to learn as I've gone, learn as I go in all my different work, and so that created a bit of imposter syndrome for me throughout my career of like, fuck, do I really know what I'm doing? Am I okay in this job? And so finally I was like, all right, I need to do something about this. So I'm going to like get a degree. I was thinking I'll get a master's degree, or an MBA, so that I feel more qualified to do my work that I'm doing. But that's really expensive. And I found out about this coaching course that I didn't really know what coaching was, but it was a lot more affordable. So I decided to try that. And in the end, because I pay for my own coach, because I'm continually paying for my own professional development, at this point, I've probably spent more than I would have if I had done an MBA or a master's. And I don't regret 1 cent of it. But yeah, like to get into this work and to really be in integrity in this work, it also costs money, right? Just like any high level profession.
That's so true. And I totally agree. Like, I really like how you said about that energetic commitment. Like, when you pay for something, it's a lot more different and it feels different, like as a coach, but also as someone who's being coached. And speaking of, we talked a lot about coaching, but focusing more on you and what you offer. Because I know a lot of people
Mhm.
here would want to meet you and get coached, like we said. So could you please describe the services that you offer and what my audience can gain from taking up your services?
Yeah. So this is my 5th year of business right now, and I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm really getting clearer on who are the people that I want to serve. And so, first of all, I work with people who are at the executive level and have the decision-making power to use company budget to get their own leadership development through a coaching partnership. So that's the first thing, because I think I've worked with a lot of people who fund their own coaching, and that's great. Um, but when working with executives, I want to work with companies that understand leadership development is important enough that it's going to come out of the company budget. And that's always best when I work with executives who can just make that decision on their own. And part of focusing on executives that lead teams and organizations is that that's where the work can have the most impact. Because if you impact a leader, that impacts their team, that impacts their organization. And then secondly, in terms of what I offer, I've really simplified that lately as well. And basically, people that want to work with me, they first have to make the commitment of coming here to do a 4-day retreat with me. So as I mentioned before, I call this a wilderness visioning retreat. And in those 4 days, we develop like, what will the outcomes of the work be for you in the next year, right? So what's your vision? What's the objective you have? What are the measurements? What will that look like? And then what are the steps to get there? So that's what we work on in those 4 days. And again, it's a mix of coaching discussion, outdoor activities, other types of work that help to kind of inspire people and really open them up to think about possibility and what they want to create. And based on the outcome of that, then if after those 4 days, if we both feel like it's a fit, then it's a 1-year commitment. And during that 1 year, we have 2 to 3 sessions per month that are an hour long each. And we're working on like how the progress going in that project, what's getting in the way, and getting to the depth of like why might things be getting in the way, what's showing up, the patterns that I mentioned earlier, what are their ways of being as leader that are effective or effective that they may want to change, and how might they want to change that. So that's the key way that I work and the type of people that I work with.
Awesome. And I hope my audience takes note of that. I hope that they sign up to be in that 1 year commitment. And really, I believe that based on what we hear and what my audience has heard from this podcast, that there's so much that you've gone through and so much learning and it things that you've been through that has made you like more experienced as a coach, and your knowledge and experience in this field is on a whole different level. So that really makes me curious to ask you. So, adventure partner, where do you see yourself and the company in the next 10 years? And what are some of the key goals that you would like to check off by
Yeah. Um, I don't really have aspirations to grow my business to be like a place where I'm employing a bunch of people and all that. That doesn't interest me that much. In 10 years from now, if I could basically still be working in a lot of the way that I'm working now, but probably with a bit more predictability of income, that would be nice. But what interests me more is how I am participating in my local community here. So one of my favorite parts about my business is that when I have clients come to me and work with me here, it supports the local economy because I pay my partners, right? I pay the places that they stay and the food that they eat and guide partners and that type of thing. So I would love for my business to be having even more of an impact than the impact it's having now on the local economy. Um, and then I'm also interested in starting to develop more of a network across rural areas in Japan so that small businesses like mine know how to find resources from each other. As the world seems to get crazier and crazier and less predictable, I really feel strongly that like bolstering both local communities and then other types of communities like networks of coaches or businesses or that type of thing is really the only way we're going to be able to move forward and get through whatever is coming. So I would love 10 years from now if I've been able to be even a small part of creating something like that where small businesses are supporting local communities in Japan, and where these rural communities in Japan are really seen as centers of potential because often rural communities in Japan are seen as statistics of like population dropping. And of course, that's true, and it's not going to be an easy thing to change, but it doesn't mean that we can't be centers of potential that help to really support the country overall.
I think it's an amazing initiative, what you're doing. And like I said about your journey, your experience, and shifting a little bit away, but not too far away from
Yeah.
Adventure Partner, is the articles that you write is
Mhm.
something that you probably don't coach people on. It's something that you do as part of your day to day, or maybe as something you do at the side. Is the articles you write are extremely impactful, and you can find it out. You can read the articles on the website, which I'll be linking in the description below. So I wanted to ask, what inspired you to start writing these articles, and what gives you the motivation to continue?
Um, I've always enjoyed writing. I haven't done it in a public way until I started this business. And I've gone through many different kind of cycles of it, where I've done a lot of it and then I've stepped away from it and done more of it. Um, and I'm in a cycle right now, and partly related to, before we started recording, I mentioned to you I have another partner in Thailand who has been supporting me with my marketing strategy and how I set up LinkedIn and that type of thing. And that's really been a good motivator to show me like a structure that I can use in terms of how to find the topics and kind of the piece of writing, and also using more AI these days. I mean, it's such an incredible like thought partner and writing partner and tool that's like helped with the efficiency and help like getting ideas and then really drawing those ideas out and then quickly getting them into some kind of published form. So it's the kind of thing I've found, like it's really just in the past month that I've started to really get in a rhythm of it again and find that the type of thing, as you build momentum, momentum can continue to build, and particularly when you start to get feedback from people if it's helpful. So I actually I just started reading this book as well. This is called Writing Down the Bones, and this is a book from 1986, so it's pretty old, but it's really talking about writing as a practice in the same way that like meditation would be a practice. It's just something that you keep doing, whether you're planning on publishing or using it a lot or not, just to get in the practice of like how do thoughts move from our heads and our hearts and to our hands onto paper. So yeah, I'm enjoying seeing it as a continuing practice.
Awesome, and absolutely. I wish you the best of luck with that. I read some of the articles that you've written, and it's amazing. And I hope that my audience has a look at those articles that you write, because I think it's like your coaching, it's transformational, it makes a difference, it's very insightful, I would say. And as we are close to approaching the end of this podcast, I have one question that I would like to ask you that I ask everyone is, if you could voice one unique message to the world, what would it be?
I don't know if it's a completely unique message, but I've had a lot of experience with grief in my life. I've had a lot of loss of family and friends. Um, and, I think a lot of people shy away from grief and sadness. And um, there's a lot to be in grief and sad about in the world right now. And so the invitation is to like, how can you embrace that and let your heart really experience it? Hopefully not in a way that completely incapacitates you, but in a way that really lets you feel your heart. Because if we can really experience the grief and the sadness for the loss that we're experiencing, then we can move through it. So particularly to young people who have just so many challenges to deal with right now, to allow yourself to be open to that, so that you can move through it, so we can all move through to whatever's on the other side of, kind of the crazy stuff that's going on now.
Wow, that's a really unique message and a really powerful one. Thank you so much for sharing. And that concludes the interview section of the podcast. Thank you so much, Cory, for your time. It's been a
Cool.
pleasure
Thanks,
having
AJ.
you on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
to my audience who's new, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can know about Cory and the amazing things that he does. And I'll see you all for the next episode. Goodbye.